This is a beginner video on ionic compounds and how to name them. First off, what is an ionic compound? Ionic compound, any of a large group of chemical compounds consisting of oppositely charged ions, wherein electron transfer or ionic bonding holds the atoms together. Let's start off with the periodic table. Notice anything? There are 18 different groups, each with its own trait. Now, let's start off with the first group, alkali metals. They have one proton, which means that they also have one electron. Now, let's move on to the electron shells. Each element has electron shells and each has its own electrons. Neon, for example, has 10 electrons. This is actually perfect because to be stable it needs 10 electrons. The first shell of any element must have 2 electrons and in the second shell must have 8. Okay, now let's start naming the compounds. For example, sodium oxide. Sodium on the periodic table is Na, and oxide or oxygen is O. On the periodic table, O is in the 16th group, or group 6, and it holds 2 electrons. Because there's 8 protons, or 8 electrons, the first shell would have 2 electrons, but the second shell would only have 6, and so it needs to gain 2 to have a full shell. And so, if it gains electrons, then that means that the charge would become 2- because electrons are negative charge. Sodium, on the other hand, which is in group 1, has only 1 electron, and when it loses an electron, the charge would be Na+. Now put together, it would be Na+ and O2-. However, this is not balanced, because if sodium gives one of its electrons to oxygen, oxygen would only have 9 electrons in total, or 2 in the first shell and 7 in the second shell. And so it needs 1 more to have a full shell, which means that you would actually need to have 2 sodium molecules to balance the charge of oxygen. And so the final equation would be Na2O.